Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. Now to do this, we're using a method of art called a rough sketch. And when we rough sketch, we just start everything off really lightly and then we darken in what we want to keep as we go along. Most important thing to remember is that this is your own interpretation of this character on your paper. So I encourage you to be as creative as you want to be, and also remember to have some fun. Now the first thing we want to do is build a foundation. So this is where things should be the lightest and the messiest. Our foundation for the Cheshire Cat is going to start off as a circle. And you can make that however big or small you want to make it, but again, keep this really light, really messy, and just keep building that shape until you get the size and shape that you want to use for your drawings. Throughout this entire process, we don't stop and start over. We just keep building shapes and features until we think they look pretty good. Once you have some sort of round shape on your paper, we then add in guidelines, and these will help us locate where the features are going to go. Now the guidelines are just basically cutting the circle in half from top to bottom and left to right. Or we're just adding a big plus sign or breaking the circle into these 4 fairly equal pieces. Now from here we start adding in the features that we want to keep. With the Cheshire Cat, we're going to start with his nose and then just work our way out from there. Now his nose is going to end up looking like a rounded triangle. So I'm going to start right where those guidelines are meeting up, right there at the center of my circle, and just add a little rainbow. And then I'm just going to add a couple of curved lines on each side to close it up and form that rounded triangle.
Another one if you want.
That's pointing down. Also inside of the nose, we're going to add in just these little curved lines, kind of like little commas or just little rainbows, and those will show off his nostrils. With the nose in place, we start adding in the eyes. Now his eyes are very round. These are just going to look like circles. But what I like to do is lightly sketch these out so they actually end up overlapping on top of that vertical guideline because the eyes are also pretty close together. And they're resting right on top of the nose. Now once you get a pretty good size and shape in place, which I usually go for about half the size of those top quarters, then you can go back and you can darken them in, and as you do this you can readjust if you need to. And then also you can create just a little bit more space in between the eyes right next to that vertical guideline. It's always good just to start everything off really light, that way you can readjust it if you need to. And then with the eyes in place, we can add in the pupils. And the Cheshire Cat is definitely a character that we can take a lot of liberties with. We can be a little bit more creative with this character because he is one of our sillier and kookier characters. So you're welcome to place these pupils anywhere inside the eyes that you want to, or you can draw these in as different shapes if you want to as well. Most important thing with the pupils is keep them really, really small. Creating a lot of white space around the pupils helps to give that blank expression. And then also, make them the darkest part of your drawing. So once you get them in place, just darken them in so they're really, really dark. And then above each eye, we'll add in the eyebrows. And the eyebrows are just these thin little rainbows. But the eyebrows are also an easy way to play around with expressions and personality. So you can have those eyebrows pretty much doing anything you want. You can stretch them up really tall or raise one up a little bit taller than the other. It's really up to you how you want those eyebrows to go. Now with all of those facial features in place, we'll add in probably the most important feature on his entire face, because oftentimes this is all you see, and that's his smile. Now we're actually going to be building off of our circle. We're going to widen his face. So I'm going to go back to this horizontal guideline, and right where it's coming outside of the circle, I'm going to add these little rainbows that are sitting right on top of that line. And that's going to give us his smile lines, which are not only good anchor spots for his smile, but they'll also help to show that his smile is pushing up into his cheeks. I'm also going to go halfway between the nose and the bottom of the circle, and I'm just going to add a little dot, and that's about where the middle of the smile should go. So now we're just connecting one smile line to the other with either a big happy grin or just a really big stretched out letter U. Just stretching from one side to the other and really pushing up into that smile line. And then most of the time he is smiling with a really big toothy grin. You always see his teeth. So we're going to widen the smile just by doing the same thing we just did. We're going to start at the smile line. And this time we're either following the bottom of the circle, or you can pull it down a little bit past the bottom of the circle if you want to as well. Make it really, really big. And his mouth's just a little bit close together at the smile lines, and then nice and wide at the bottom center. Now to show the teeth, we're just going to add a series of these little vertical lines all across that smile. And the basic pattern that we follow is by starting with that vertical guideline, and we just go to either side of it and add a little line. Now from here, we just start dividing space in half. So we'll go between this line and the back of the smile, find that middle spot, and just add a line. So the same thing over here, between this line, the back of the smile, find that middle spot. Divide this back space in half, and then divide that front space in half. But that's getting like super specific. Don't worry if one tooth starts looking a little bit bigger than the other. You can add more teeth as well if you want to, but that's just kind of the basic pattern that we follow to get those little lines in place. Now once we get that in place, we're going to close up the bottom of his face. And the first thing we do is we add in the cheeks. And the cheeks follow the same smile line curves. So we're adding in some more of those little rainbows. You can think of that just like some more little smile lines, just wrapping up and over. Then take the cheeks and connect them to where the eye is connecting to the nose. So now we're creating either a hook shape or a stretched out letter S that's lying on its side. There's this very distinct divide between basically the top half of his face and the bottom half of his face. And the fur is a little bit of a different color as well. And now we're just going to connect one cheek to the other. We're just following the same curve of his smile. So follow along all the way around from one side to the other. So that'll close up the lower half of his face. We can add in one little detail. In between the nose and the mouth, he has that little divide. So we can just darken in our vertical line right at that spot. And then also add in these 3 small curved lines to give him those little whiskers. And really, all that's left to do now is just shape the top of his head out of the top of our circle. His fur tends to part in a particular direction, and his head has this very distinct shape to it with the way the fur is parting. So that's basically all we're going to do now. And to start that off, we just go back to that vertical guideline. And right up here at the very top, we're adding in a curvy letter V. Keep all of this really light for right now as we get that basic shape in place. Now from here, we're going to take that letter V and we're actually going to turn it into a letter M. So I'm following the sides of the circle, and I'm curving down, and I'm going to stop right at about the eyebrows on each side. From here, right where I left off, I'm going to take those ends, and I'm going to attach these letter C's. Backwards letter C over here on the left, and then a little forwards letter C over here on the right. And I'm curving in really close to the eye, and then I'm also curving back out, so I'm stopping at the side of the circle, and I'm leaving a little space in between this letter C and the top of the cheek. The reason for that, the reason we've kept it light, the reason we're leaving that space is because his fur also tends to stick out in all different kinds of directions. He's definitely one of our messier looking characters. Now this is where I encourage more creativity because there's really no right or wrong way to draw this in. And you can basically make him look as scruffy as you want to. But what we're doing is we're just adding in kind of like these letter V's, shark fins. You can think of it like you're cutting into that shape. And you can have them sticking out in all different kinds of directions. So you don't have to follow exactly what I do. But his fur tends to bunch up right here at the top. And then also right on top of the cheek. So as we go to close that up, just add a little series of those. Or you can keep him looking nice and smooth. Like maybe you just had a bath or something. And you can go back and you can darken in those C shapes if you need to. And really all that's left, our last major features on his portrait, are his ears. And the ears end up looking to me like little lemons or little light bulbs that are sticking out on the top of his head. So I'm going to go back to that vertical guideline, and on either side of it, I'm going to add this backwards parentheses, or these curved lines that are curving away from each other. So these are sitting on either side of the part as well. Then I'm going to just add in more curved lines that just curve right back down and connect to the top of his fur. Now to avoid flat-looking shapes, to add a little bit more depth to our drawing, and also just to really make these look more like ears, like they're turned out towards us, we're just going to add in just some curved lines. And these start at the bottom left and the bottom right, and they just curve up towards the top. And then that's it. Now those are all of the major features for drawing your portrait of the Cheshire Cat. So at this point you're welcome to go back through your drawings and do any cleanup of your drawings however you feel necessary. But the most important thing to do is make sure you take a moment to proudly autograph your artwork. You are now official artists and you've completed drawing your very own portrait of the Cheshire Cat. Now the big question is, did we have some fun out there?
Yeah.
You're still touching things up. But if you would, please just take a quick moment, show me what you got going on so far. Let's see some Cheshire Cats out here looking fantastic.
Pass this class.
Great idea. You all pass the class. Give